Well, good morning and welcome to Sunnyside, where we are a people following Jesus to those not yet. Guys, my name is Corey, and I'm one of the pastors here. And the very first thing we need to get out of the way is, yes, I got my hair cut. I think this is what they're calling a corona cut these days. My hair was just getting out of control. I wanted to get it cut. My wife says, I will cut it, but I'm going to cut it the way I like it. So if you don't like my haircut, too bad. My wife thinks it's hot. I'm good with it, all right? So, hey, question for you. I've got a glass of water here. How heavy do you think that this glass of water is? Now, some of you guys might think it's like 8 ounces or 12 ounces. But the absolute weight actually doesn't matter as much. It depends on how long I hold it. That's what matters of how heavy or how weighty it happens to be. Now, if I held it for a minute, not a big deal, not a problem, right? If I hold it for an hour, I'm going to start having an ache in my arm. If I hold it all day, then my arm's going to feel numb or maybe even paralyzed, right? In each case, the weight of the glass, the actual weight, doesn't actually change. But the longer that I hold it, the heavier it becomes. The longer you and I hold on to something without interruption, without setting it down or having someone else to kind of bear that weight with us, the heavier it becomes. Guys, we're in a series right now called Burdens. What are you carrying? And that's the series that we're in is to be able to help us understand how we're supposed to act and interact with not only our burdens, but other people's burdens. And we've been in a passage. It comes from Galatians chapter 6. So if you've got your Bibles, you can open up there. This is actually the words that Paul is speaking to a church in Galatia. And he does an incredible job of helping us understand burdens. And so last week and this week, we're kind of focusing in on this passage. So let's go to the text and talk about some of the things we learned last week so that we're setting ourselves up better for today. So this is what he says. He says, carry each other's burdens. Now, one of the things we learned last week is that there's actually 2 words in this passage that are translated burdens, and they mean 2 different things. The burden that we're talking about here is the weighty kind, the heavy kind, the things that weigh us down, the ones that are not actually meant to be carried alone. And so we're actually supposed to carry each other's heavy weights, right? And in this way, you will fulfill the law of Christ. I love the imagery that we have here. By actually carrying other people's burdens, what we're doing is we're doing the very thing that Jesus is called to do by loving one another as He has loved us. And so this is a big deal. We actually are fulfilling the law of Christ. He goes on to say, if anyone thinks that they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions, and then they can take pride in themselves alone without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load. Now, this is the other word in this passage that can also be translated burden, but it means something different. It's not the weighty or heavy type of burden. It's more in line with like a backpack that you put on. It's carrying your own responsibilities, the things that you can carry, and they're not actually that big of a difficulty for you. You're not supposed to slough those things off on other people. You're supposed to carry your own backpack when it comes down to that. Now, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time, we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. So therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people. Paul and Jesus both are commissioning us. Let us do good to all people, but especially to those who belong to the family of believers. So in other words, what we're supposed to do is actually take care of those that are in our church, those who are in our community first, and then extend beyond into the community around us. And this is great instruction. This is wonderful stuff that we're able to take a look at from last week, which sets us up for this week. Now, last week we learned one of the most important things to carrying somebody else's burden is actually starting by seeing their burdens. We have to see their burdens in order to carry those burdens. However, the burden of burden carrying is not solely on those of us who desire to help others, but also on those who are being pressed down by the burden. In order for others to bear a burden, people have to be willing to first share their burden. There's an old adage, it's a quote that's actually attributed to several other people. You and I are both familiar with that. It says this, be kind. You never know what someone else is going through. And that's absolutely true. So you should be kind to everybody. And as we're looking at them, we should be looking for the burdens that they're carrying that we might be able to help out with. However, sometimes you can look intently and even pry into somebody else's life, but that person, they just won't let you in. They won't let you know what they're going through. And in this case, I can try to see people's burdens as much as I want. I can even be willing to help carry their burden. But unless someone is actually willing to share their burden, then nothing can be done. Now, what you all need to know is this. Historically, I've been one of those people, always wanting to help other people, but not really allowing people into my life, into my situation, transparent enough to allow people to really help me. And when you stop to think about it, like that's actually just a double standard. I've even gone as far as to convince myself that by not sharing my burden is an act of humility and servanthood. But the reality is that not sharing your burdens with other people, the weighty things, the things that weigh you down, not the backpacks that we're supposed to carry, but the heavy things. By not sharing my burdens with other people, it's actually selfish. It's stupid. And quite frankly, it's even prideful. Matter of fact, let me illustrate how this oftentimes works out in our life. Have you ever had to carry a mattress on your own? You know, you're moving and you're trying to get your mattress from one place to another, or maybe you're just moving it from room to room. The reality is the mattress this size it's hard to carry on your own. Now, I could drag it, but it's going to get dirty or maybe even kind of torn up. And so really the only way that I can figure out to carry this thing is by hoisting it up on me like, say this right here. Now, the reality is I can carry this thing, at least for a period of time. It's pretty heavy. But eventually I'm going to get hurt. My neck's going to get sore. My legs are going to get heavy. You know, I mean, I could actually hurt myself doing this for too long of time. If I carry it around other people not being able to see as well, I could actually damage the thing I'm carrying or hurt somebody else in the process. I mean, think about trying to get this thing through a door like this. I'm not going to be able to do it, right? Not only that, but I leave myself vulnerable. My hands are tied to this, and so somebody else could come kick me in the stomach. I couldn't do anything about it, right? We make things harder than it has to be because we carry this stuff all by ourselves, all alone. Now, guys, it's not that I can't carry this on my own, but I have to ask myself, is it the wise thing to do to carry this thing on my own? This is oftentimes how we deal with our burdens. We hoist them up on our shoulders and we carry them throughout life without reaching out for others to help us out. Now, guys, you have to understand, you got to carry your own load, but when you have something on your back like this, man, it gets heavy, and some things are just not meant to be carried all on your own. You know, the burdens sometimes that we are meant to carry, they don't look like this. Over time, you're going to get exhausted. You're going to get tired. You're not going to be able to look people in the eyes. Man, it gets tough. So this mattress actually might represent for some of you guys the sin struggles that you guys have. Or maybe addictions that you're dealing with, or relational difficulties, or despair even. You know, this pandemic that we're in is one of those kind of things that, man, it's just been too heavy for a lot of people to carry on their own. And so it's important that you reach out and let other people carry this. But I got to tell you, after this pandemic is over, there are going to be other burdens, sometimes even bigger burdens that people have to carry. And I'm not just talking about the economic issues that people are going to have. I'm talking about things like PTSD, like symptoms, domestic violence. It's increasing right now more than ever. Marriages are on the brink. And I got to tell you, man, marriages are either going to be producing more babies or they're going to be producing more divorces at the flip side of this. You know, things like addiction are on the rise. And with people having time on their hands, pornography is out the roof. So on the flip side of this whole pandemic, we're going to have more things to carry than ever before. And people are walking around like this, guys, carrying their burdens on their back without asking for any kind of assistance. We can't bear these burdens on our own, and we're not meant to. So I got to ask you, what's weighing you down? What's so heavy on your shoulders that you've been carrying all alone for so long that it's becoming too heavy for you to carry? What are the things that you project in the future are going to be bigger than what you can carry on your own? What does this mattress happen to represent for you? Guys, we can't bear these burdens alone, and we're not meant to. We need help from others. As a matter of fact, Joe, can you come help me out, man? This thing is, it's burdensome, dude. Oh, thank you so much. All right, yes, okay. Dude, so glad that you just happened to be walking by.
Yeah, I'm here
help me
for
out.
you.
I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
Whew, this thing is, I'm sweating, man. This thing is burdensome.
Seems like you're holding that thing for a little while.
I was. Now, it looks like you got a little bit of a load of your own, huh?
Yeah, man. I'll be honest. Work's been kind of tough. My boss is tough.
Yeah, your boss is tough. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. Well, hey, dude, thanks for helping me out.
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate
What can I do to help?
Dude, let's see. Stand right here for me if you don't mind. Put your arms around the sides. There you go. Either side. Bend your knees a little bit.
Okay.
Perfect. Lean.
Okay.
Yes, that. Just like that. Thank you. Whew, I tell you what. It's good to have that burden off of my shoulders. Thank goodness you came along, Joe. Appreciate you, man. Now, you guys might be laughing, just like I am, because you know that sharing your burden is not necessarily passing the monkey off to somebody else, or in this case, the mattress off to someone else. You can't just relieve yourself of your burden by simply giving it to others. Now, there may be some situations where you need help from others, for them to be able to temporarily take that burden off of your shoulders. And I get that. Those are the rare circumstances, though. You see, you're meant to help carry burdens, not necessarily to take them from others. Now, there are some people, and you know those people. You've got them in your life. They may be at your work, or they might be your friends, they might be your neighbors, they might be in your home, and they're constantly dumping their burden on you. And guys, that's not okay. It's okay and even necessary for those of us that are burden carriers to put up proper boundaries for people like this in our life. And if you happen to be one of those people that are constantly just dropping your burdens on others, you're just making other people carry your mattresses, man, you need to take responsibility for your own thing. It's not that you can't still ask for help to carry your load as long as you're carrying your own part and you're doing your own part. But if you happen to find yourself only ever asking for help and not actually stopping or putting yourself in a position to help carry other people's burdens, guys, that's a problem. That's a problem. And for you, I just need to tell you, if you happen to find yourself in that place, you wonder if you're overextending yourself, stop asking other people for a period of time and start looking for other people's burdens to carry. And then you'll find it a lot easier to be able to ask other people to help carry your heavy burdens, not your loads, your backpacks that you're supposed to carry on your own. Now, in all reality, sometimes helping others is not really helping others. There's actually this concept and even a book out there. It's called When Helping Hurts. It is possible for us to try to help and take burdens and relieve other people of their burdens that are going on, and it actually is detrimental to them. And that takes place whenever we start doing something for someone else that they can actually do for themselves. Those of you all that have kids, you'll know what I'm talking about when I say this, but my kids are constantly asking me to do things for them, like, pour their cereal or make them breakfast and stuff. And I've got a 5-year-old girl who I'll do that for because she has a hard time being able to do it. But I've also got a 10-year-old daughter who I say, you can do that yourself. And it's not that I don't want to be a servant to them, but I understand that if I'm doing something that I know that they can do on their own, at some point, I'm actually crippling them because they start to become dependent upon me instead of being able to do something on their own. You see, the idea, guys, is to lighten the load, not to just let go of the load. I love that phrase. Actually, Joe's the one who came up with that in our brainstorm this past week. The idea is to lighten the load. Don't just let go of the load. Speaking of Joe, how you doing over there, buddy?
Well, just another day at the office, boss. Hanging in there.
Guys, sharing your burden doesn't mean that you have to be a burden. And I think that's something that we get wrong a lot. We get wrong in our mind and we get it wrong in practice. I was looking at a passage in Scripture. It comes again from a guy named Paul, who's an apostle of Jesus. Did some incredible things, had a lot of wisdom. But he understood this principle not only as he was conveying it to others, but how he lived his life. In 2 Corinthians 11, we actually get some insight into this. This is what he says. He said, "And when I was with you and didn't have enough to live on, I did not become a financial burden to anyone. For the brothers who came from Macedonia brought me all that I needed. I have never been a burden to you, and I never will be." You see, Paul understood the balance between the sharing a burden and also carrying your own load. In many circumstances, Paul and his cohorts, the people that would be working with him, would actually work, and they would do tent making themselves and provide for themselves. At the same time, they also let other churches know of the needs as they would go and do the work. And so he let the Macedonian church know of the needs that he had. They provided for him while he was in Corinth, so he wasn't a burden to the people that he was ministering to in that moment. That is the perfect blend and understanding of what this can actually look like. And when you stop to think about it, Jesus himself wasn't ashamed to share his burdens with others. We see him doing this in the Garden of Gethsemane as he's praying to the Father right before he gets arrested and goes to trial and all that kind of stuff. He's carrying this enormous burden that he's got. And yet he allows his disciples to come in on it, and he shares with them, and he asks them to actually stay up and pray with him to share his burden. Now, they're a bunch of doofuses. They fall asleep, but nonetheless, Jesus was willing to share that burden. And we know that the cross itself was a burden that only Jesus could bear. Only he could die for the sins of mankind. But even in that process, what we see is that Jesus allows another guy, Simon, to come alongside of him. Luke records this, and he actually helps him to carry his cross to the place where he can do what only he can do. Now, if Jesus is willing to share his burdens with others, guys, we have to learn to share our burdens while carrying our own load. And it's okay to set boundaries when you're burden carrying. Now, for many of you, like me, it is much easier for you to shoulder the extra weight of someone else than it is for you to share your burdens with others. And I get this because something inside of us makes us think that we can't or we shouldn't burden other people's. Now, one of the big problems is that we oftentimes only see our burden as just that. We see it as a burden. But what if our burden was actually a blessing for someone else? I know that might sound odd, guys, but sometimes the very best way that we can bless someone else is by allowing them to help you. Guys, there are people right now that are looking for purpose more than ever before. They want to help. They want to have significance. We have people that have actually notified us as a church, and we have a list of people that are saying, will you please let us know how we can help other people during this time? And so for some of you that are hearing this right now, the very best thing that you can do is to let someone go to the store for you. The very best thing that you can do is to ask someone to check in on you. The very best thing that you can do is actually to let someone know that you need help, that you're carrying a load that's too big for you to carry on your own, that you are weighed down by something in your life, whether it be a sin struggle that you need to confess or an addiction that is starting to creep up. Don't just pass off your burden, but share it so that other people can help you carry it. They want to do it. And in this way, they will be fulfilling the law of Christ. And so it's a double blessing. They receive a blessing for helping, and you receive a blessing for receiving. Now, it is so hard for me, and it has been historically, for me to let others help me. But I've learned that it truly is a blessing to receive. As a matter of fact, I have a couple examples of that in my own life. The first time I broke my collarbone back in Arizona, and then just most recently, I was out of commission. I wasn't able to do the things that I typically do. I wasn't able to help out around the house and my family, and so people stepped in and they helped me. My brother flew in from out of state to help bear the burden a little bit. People brought meals to our house and did things for us. It was such a blessing. I had to receive it. I didn't have an option at that point. And I learned that it was both a blessing for me and it was a blessing for others. Now, those of you all that know that my family, my wife specifically, struggles with depression, and sometimes her despair derails her. And it puts her in a place where she's unmotivated and can't do anything, and she's hurting. And when we have to deal with that on our own, it is a weight too big for us to bear on our own. But when we share that, as shameful as it was on the front side of us to be able to do that, now what we've learned is that sharing it not only relates to other people, but it allows other people to actually stand up underneath it and to pray alongside of us and to offer encouragement and to check in and help. And then it becomes something that's manageable for the both of us. And most recently, And this is just, I think, an incredible example of how this happened. Some of you all may know, but when we moved into our house, it's an older house, and we ended up having all sorts of issues. But one of the biggest issues we had was an issue with our main sewer line backing up into our crawl space, and it kept doing this over and over again. And so we finally, started looking for some different help, and we got some estimates to be able to do this thing, and the estimates came back like way expensive, and we're just thinking, man, like we can't do this, but we can't continue to be able to have our house flooded with sewage. And so one of my friends one day just asked me, and he said, hey, what's the number one thing I can be praying for you about? And so I told him about our sewer problem, and so he agreed not only to pray with me and bear the burden in that way, but he also happened to know some other people, and so he didn't stop at prayer. He actually connected me with some guys that know how to be able to solve this problem. And as I talked to them, they said, oh yeah, we can absolutely do that. And they came and they actually fixed the problem for a fraction of the price. Now, a fraction of the price was still quite a lot of money, and so we paid half of that up front, and we were waiting until our next paycheck to be able to cover the rest. And when we went to pay the rest of the bill, we found out that somebody else had actually covered the other half for us. Guys, do you all know how much of a blessing that was? How much of a relief it was for us as a family? Not to have that financial thing, not to have that health issue going on in our life. And not only were we blessed to receive, but I am confident, and I know that my friend who helped connect us with the guys that knew how to do the work, and the guys that knew how to do the work came in, and the people that I still to this day don't know who financially helped us out for that, all of us were actually blessed because we were willing to share our burden, and they were willing to bear our burden. Everybody got blessed in the process. You see, a sorrow shared is half a trouble, but a joy shared is joy made double. The joy that we experienced through that was actually something that they got to experience because they got to help me along the process. Guys, it's hard to ask. I know that. I know it's hard to ask. But when you are on the receiving end, man, it gives you a greater appreciation, and it gives you a deeper empathy and a motivation to be able to help other people in their time of need. So can I beg and plead with you to give someone the blessing of carrying a burden by sharing yours? Because it is possible. It's possible for you to share your burden without being a burden to others. But it requires a willingness to share it and carry your own load at the same time. And speaking of doing that, I kind of left Joe carrying my own, and that's not right. So I need to go check back in on him. Joe, you doing okay over here, man?
I'm hanging in there, bud.
Dude, I'm sorry for offloading my burden on you. Let's actually figure out how we can do this the right way, because me just offloading this off on you, that is not a good thing. That's not beneficial to you. It's not beneficial to me, but there's a way that we can do this together. So you grab hold of that side, I'll grab hold of this side. Let's pick this thing up.
Yeah. Oh.
Now let me ask you a question. Is that much better?
That's nice.
Could you carry this for a little while?
Absolutely. I could do this all day, man.
Yeah, you could do this on top of your own load that you got, right?
That's manageable for sure.
Yeah. You see, when it comes to sharing our burden and other people carrying it, this is how it should be done. And maybe not just being Joe. Maybe sometimes this is heavy enough to where we have other people involved, kind of like my sewage problem issue. You have a person on each corner, and it makes this thing a lot easier to manage. But the only way that this happens is if we healthily share our burdens with other people so that they can help us carry them. Let's put this down here, Joe. The reality is that some of you guys, and specifically, thank you so much for helping, Joe, specifically here in our congregation, I know that for a lot of us, it's really hard to share our burdens with other people. I get it. Many of you guys, and I've heard you actually say this, like, oh, somebody else needs it more than I do. And I love your heart and I love your sentiment. But if you've heard anything that I've said today, some of you need to share your burdens. Not in a way that you completely offload it on somebody else, that you help carry it with them, but allow other people to step into this to be able to help you out. Guys, we need to do this as individuals, and we want to do this as a church. And so if we're going to put into practice Galatians 6, where it talks about being able to do good to everyone, but especially those who are of the faith, those who are of the church, I need you guys to understand as the community of believers that as part of Sunnyside, that if you have burdens that are too big for you to carry right now, whether they be questions in your faith, whether they just some fellowship that you need, somebody to be able to speak and confess the things that you got going on in your life. And maybe with your free time, you've gotten caught up back into some addictions or some pornography or some things like that, and you just need somebody else to help bear those burdens. Guys, we want to be the kind of church that stands in the gap for you to help you carry those on your own, because you're not meant to carry them yourself. Now, I want to refer back to something that I introduced you all to last week. It's actually been in place for a while, but we've been making some adjustments. The Those Not Yet Fund is a fund that you can offer above and beyond your tithe to be able to support different things. Previously, it's been for our community and some building projects, some environment things that we've been doing here. We've actually foregone those environment things, and we put all that money into our community pot. And what we've done is we've created this relief fund out of this for people that have specifically been affected by COVID-19. And we already have $20,000 that are set aside. That's kind of what we set aside. But what I love about our church is that over the course of this past month, you guys have actually contributed more to this fund than you have over the course of its inception over 8 months ago, because you guys are actually welling up, kind of like the Macedonian church, in rich generosity out of your extreme circumstances, and some of you even in your poverty, because you see the opportunity to be able to meet somebody's need. And we as a church have the opportunity to do it. As a matter of fact, we're going to be able to bear and help shoulder the burdens of many people in the process, because you all are willing to be able to address that. And so Joe will actually tell you a little bit more about how you can do that, giving above and beyond your faithfulness to the Those Not Yet Fund. That everything that you give to that through the end of May at least is going to go strictly and specifically to being able to meet the needs of those in our church and in our community. Now, the way in which we actually meet those needs is we encourage you or somebody that you know, you can send this link to people to actually get on our website and fill out the Needs Help form. Now, the Needs Help form has several different areas of need that can be met, whether it's faith or fellowship or food or finances. But we got several of those that were turned in this past week. And this past week, we were actually able to give away almost $3,000 and thereby help lighten the load of several people from both our church and our community. But I want to tell you the story of one specific person that we were able to help out this past week. There was a lady who filled out this Needs Help form, and she's got 2 kids, and recently she moved here from Texas. Now, she works in the home health industry and was assigned to one of our church families, the Grindstaffs. And through their relationship and some conversations, they actually introduced her and her kids to Sunnyside. She just started coming when this whole pandemic thing hit. Now, first of all, I got to say, way to go to the Grindstaffs for showing your love to this lady and not hesitating to introduce her to this church. And so by doing so, you not only help to introduce her to a body of believers who can love on her, but can actually step in and specifically help her carry her burden right now. Now, as you all can imagine, the home health care that whole industry has been hit pretty hard because of the situation right now. People don't really want to take a chance at spreading COVID-19, especially to our at-risk population. And so that's been really, really difficult. Her pay has been cut or nil. In addition to that, her boyfriend has been out of work for over a month, and her dad actually just joined them from Texas, and he's got health problems of his own. Now, on top of all of this, their family is also working through some past abuse issues. Now, you want to talk about carrying a load? You want to talk about carrying some weighty things in life? Man, this family is carrying something, and it's a burden that is not meant to be carried alone. And so I'm so glad that they've reached out. I'm so glad that they've shared what they did, because this week we got the privilege of calling her and her dad and letting them know that we are going to cover their rent for the month of May. Both of them, when they heard this, they just broke out in tears, as you can imagine. And she was actually saying that very morning that we called her, that she was asking God where He was and why there was so much on their plate, why things were so heavy on them at this moment. Well, guess what? God showed up in an incredibly powerful and a very tangible way through us, through our church, through you, the people who gave to this specific fund so that we might be able to meet the need. We got the privilege of helping them carry their burden, all because they were willing to share it, and you guys were willing to carry it. So here's the deal, guys. Share your burden. Be willing to carry other people's burdens, but share your burden. It just might be a blessing in disguise. Let's pray. Father, I thank you for this time together. Whether people are watching this on Sunday morning during our Sunday experience or they're catching this some other time, Lord, I just ask that you would help us know and help us to experience what it looks like, not only to be willing to carry other people's burdens, but a willingness to share ours, which means sometimes dropping our pride, admitting that we need help, acknowledging some difficulties or struggles in our life. Father, overcoming that stigma sometimes that comes with asking for help. Lord, I truly believe that it's a snare from the devil. He wants us to think that we're alone, that we got to carry this alone, that we can't ask for anything else from any other people. But Lord, you are telling us that it's actually important for us to do that. You even demonstrated through your own Son. And so, Lord, help us to understand the balance between carrying our own load and being able to bear other people's load. But if there's something that we've got in our life right now that's too big for us to carry, it's weighing us down, let us share it. And Father, I pray that we as the church, individually and collectively, would step up in a powerful way to be able to help others, and by so doing, carry them to the cross. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.